Now, how does experience factor into that learning? Did you learn from your experiences of almost winning and just the progress of your career with, you know, amateur wins and that sort of thing? How important was that?
Yeah, I think it was vital. I think, the Tigers and the Phils out there are few and far between, and they're, superstars are born, and tour players are sort of, they work into it a little bit. I remember telling your brother how mad I was that I didn't win that first time I had the lead going into the final round, and I still believe to this day that I should have won that tournament, but, he said, it was your first time, nobody wins it the first time. I certainly didn't think it was psychological at that time, that I didn't win, but, maybe it was.
Yeah.
But, if you look at my statistics from just a number standpoint, I had to go through all of that experience before I won. I had a great year in 2007. I had a good year in 2006. I had a great year in 2007, and then I won in 2008. And I had the lead a lot. I was on the leaderboard in 2007 often, and same at the beginning of the year in 2008. Right up to the week before I won my event in Vancouver, I had the lead going into the weekend in Victoria, and didn't play very well on the weekend, and then came right back and won the next week. So certainly that experience helps. So I would say it's detrimental to learning how to win.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess, you've kind of outlined a little bit, how you've progressed there through, or you did progress through, 2006, even 2007. You had, I think, a couple of top fives, and qualified for the U.S. Open that year. And then you had mentioned even the week before your win, you had the lead going into the weekend and it didn't work out. And then, you came back the very next week. So that I guess that lead up then was that really helped to shape your mindset to be able to pull it off, I guess, and to get that win. Is that?
Yeah, definitely. That whole, I'd say, year and a half or 2 years, it was, literally trying to find a way to win. Okay. And as we've discussed before, the week I won, looking back on it, I knew I was going to win that week. It sounds conceited, but I felt like all I had to do was finish the 72nd hole and I was going to win that week. I don't know why. Yeah. Just there was a feeling inside me. That I didn't worry about the result of winning because I just felt like, oh, okay, I'm this is my week. That's sort of how it boiled down to for me.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I know you had mentioned that you were, relaxed and chatty that week that you won, and that was, a big part of your success and just knowing that you were going to win, and then trying to kind of capture that and replicate it for other events, and so it's kind of hard to define, but getting into it a little bit deeper, did you just let it happen, or did you think you made that happen, or the expectation was just there and it was going to happen regardless?
I still don't know, but okay. My footloose and fancy-free attitude that week, I think, just allowed me maybe not to think about the results so much.
Okay.
I just went out and played. But, you're mentioning that, maybe I willed myself to the win that week was a point that I had never really thought about that much. But I think certainly maybe not that week, but over a number of weeks, that was, like at some point, it was such a big goal for me to win an event on the Canadian Tour for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
That at some point I thought, you know, I'm going to win at some point, period.
Right.
I don't know when it is, but it's going to happen. Whereas, you know, maybe, you know, looking back on it, that strong of a goal, that strong of a mindset should be focused on an even bigger goal, you know, of making the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
So, you know, there was a little bit of I may be jumping ahead here, but there was a little bit of a letdown after I won, you know, because it felt great. I had reached I would say that was my biggest goal. That was my biggest goal to win a Canadian Tour event for whatever reason.
Okay.
Growing up younger, watching those tour players, that was a huge goal of mine. And when I accomplished it, it felt amazing.
Yeah.
But there was a definite letdown after maybe not retooling your goals.
Yeah. It's interesting because, you know, I've heard that sort of story before, and I think it's noteworthy that, you know, that was at the time, your highest goal, and you accomplished it and didn't reset the bar to, you know, higher levels maybe, and still wanted to get to the PGA Tour, but maybe it sounds like that it didn't become an obsession, and it didn't become, you know, what you set all your new goals toward, by the sounds of it. Okay. Just kind of getting back to, you know, willing to the win or the expectation, and I just want to get into that little piece a little bit and relate it back to your, you know, your U.S. Open success in qualifying 2 times for that event, and there's 2 stages, obviously the local and the regional or sectional qualifying, and you've gotten through the first step of that 7 times, I believe, and that's not that easy. That's kind of a pretty big feat, really. And getting into the event, of course, is even bigger, and to do that twice. So, you know, did you look at that local qualifying as something you thought was easy, or you just expected it to happen, or you just were relaxed and easy going that day every time and felt no pressure to perform, or did you put pressure on yourself to perform in that in those events? What made it so successful for you over and over?
I think for me it was the fact that I knew I was clearing my competition in those events. You know, there's quite a few amateurs in the local qualifying, some local pros, and I just felt like my experience, my game was better than a lot of the players in that field each year. It was an expectation to get through every time.
Yeah.
So I felt my attitude going into that was, you know, make a few birdies, play good, don't put a ton of pressure on yourself. If you play good,
yeah,
/ decent, you're getting through.
Right.
So there was no thought process of, man, I really have to play well this week, which would have put a lot more pressure on myself. And so it was an expectation of I'm better than these players in this field, and I don't have to worry how they play, because if I play, it'll take care of it.
Yeah. That's you know, great frame of mind, and obviously works quite well, and probably can be applied to a lot of different settings when that is your frame of mind, that it's, you know, you can do it and it's not a big deal, but you're definitely, you know, expecting to get through that tournament or that qualifying, and that your competition is maybe not as good as you, and that's where you position yourself. So,
yeah.
Great. You know, you talked about visualization. You mentioned meditation as well. How do you use visualization or meditation or both? How did you use that on tour?
I used it in my pre-round routine. The night before, I would visualize just playing the golf course the way I had set out in my game plan, and I would visualize hitting every fairway, hitting every green, and one putting every hole. So birdieing every hole. the way that I had set up to play it. Oftentimes, checking out weather.com to get the wind direction and how it would play. So you would literally, you'd set up if it was sunny and windy or cloudy and coming from a different direction, so you could visualize it as closely as you thought it might be the next day. So I would do that, and certainly when I was playing well and using my pre-shot routine properly, I would visualize the flight of my ball when I was in my pre-shot routine.
Okay.
So I would do that for visualization. And then just for me, meditation is sort of thinking about nothing as good as I possibly can for about 15 minutes, sort of at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day, if ideally.
Okay.
So, and that's how I would do it.
Okay. Couple questions. Just on the visualization, when you visualize before your round and you visualize yourself making that birdie on every hole, are you visualizing that from like as a spectator watching you, the player, hit those shots, or are you seeing yourself standing over the ball, looking at the ball, hitting the shots?
Yeah, for me it was self-visualization. I would be seeing the ball and
in the shot,
being the player.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And the meditation.
In fact, I don't know if there's some. It never even entered my mind to think of watching myself.
Yeah. Well, I was just curious. Kind of for the listeners as well, what the perspective was on that. And the meditation, you'd say you did that in the morning and the evening, and was that, say, thinking of nothing, was that to improve your focus or concentration or something else?
Yeah, I think a book I read about it once said, people believe that they rest when they're sleeping, and certainly you can rest physically when you're sleeping, but when you're sleeping, that's oftentimes when your mind is most active. So the best way to rest your mind mentally is to meditate. And so when I read that, I thought I feel like that's so true, because you can get up when you're playing and you're on the road nonstop like tour players are. You can get up from 8 hours of solid sleep and still feel tired. So I think at that point it was, you're just mentally beat.
Yeah.
So for me, a lot of times, traveling and buddies of mine can attest to this, is that you'd be on the road and you get to the next stop, you get to the hotel, and for me, I would throw on some of my meditation music and just take 15 minutes to chill, and that would allow me to not snap on one of my buddies. Just you're with the same guys a lot of the time, and obviously sometimes you get on people's nerves. People get on your nerves, and for me to get away from all that was to meditate, and even you'd be so surprised that 15 minutes would just the first 10 minutes you'd be riled up thinking of who knows what, trying not to think of anything, and then for the last 5 minutes you would finally calm down, be fresh in your mind, and like me getting all my clothes out for the week, you didn't have to worry about other things clogging your mind after that.